Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 out today. Got some more balance adjustment previews for you guys. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at 9 heroes and 2 artifacts receiving said changes. And guys, I am super excited about this balance patch. It's not being received well by the community, I don't think. The stove comments, well, then again, the stove comments are always negative, but we have Faithless Lidica, Little Queen Charlotte, Dark Corvus, Jenua, Aki, Blooming Lidica, Schniel, Inferno Khawazu, Seductive Flower, and Elegiac Candle, all receiving buffs, and these are going to be scheduled to take place in 2 weeks on July 16th, so it won't influence the current RTA season or anything like that, but could potentially spell some meta changes or little shifts moving on into the future. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look here, starting off with my favorite unit in the entire game, Faithless Lidica, whose RGB counterpart, by the way, Fire Lidica, had gotten a buff that basically was Faithless Lidica but better. So let's see what they have in store for her here. Faithless Lidica is now going to get a defense break on her skill 1 in place of the decreased hit chance. Decreased hit chance was kind of okay back in the day for kind of, you know, helping your team stay alive and stuff, but nowadays very subpar, right? For a support unit, most support units nowadays have a defense break in their kit, so Faithless Lidica getting one is pretty decent. Her skill 2, Larkspur. We're going to look at the Awakened skill here. So before you had a 100% chance to spell 1 buff, now you have a 100% chance to spell 2 buffs. This is great because so many units nowadays are stacking immunity with Barrier or Barrier and Stealth and stuff like that. So this is a great way to kind of bypass that. I kind of wish that it dispelled all buffs. It would just been nice to dispel all buffs, but I guess 2 buffs is better than 1, right? So we'll take it, and instead of a critical hit dispelling an additional buff, which I guess she technically did dispel 2 buffs before, but you had to build crit rate on her, which really hampered the ability to build her fast, right? And she used to increase her combat readiness by 25% for each target, which means you could, if you hit 4 units, gain 100% combat readiness, take another turn, but it was not efficient. Gaining combat readiness was bad because if you're fighting something like Lady of the Scales, she's gaining 50% combat readiness if you're gaining 100%, right? And if your opponent's running things like Fire Politis or Abyssal Euphine, it cuts your combat readiness gains in half, but now you grant an extra turn, which is also really good because this synergizes well with a bunch of other units. Faithless Lidica can now be used with units like Saria, for example, another extra turn unit to join the ranks of Rinnock and RNL and such. The extra turn is going to be super nice because you can't get cut. As long as you take the first turn, you'll be guaranteed to get a second turn with this skill here, so that's amazing. And then her skill 3, Hysteria. So Faithless Lidica was a unit that when Notos was released, I was hoping they would buff her at some point to make her a Notos counter, right? Because of the fact that she has the ability to fully increase skill cooldowns. She still has that, which is great. Now, the only thing that's changed here is that before you had to crit to gain a skill nullifier, now you just grant a skill nullifier to everybody, despite whether you crit or not. And additionally, you get stealth for 3 turns. This is an incredible buff here, super nice for keeping her alive. The main thing about Faithless Lidica is she kind of didn't take first turn because she was too slow, and then she just kind of died. But now you're getting stealth, but you have to get the skill 3 off first. That's the main thing. The cooldown was decreased to 4 turns, which is good because technically you can kind of keep up 100% uptime, right? Because you get the extra turn here with the skill 2, and then you get to do your skill 3 again to put yourself back in stealth. The 10 soul burn ignores effect resistance, which is great because the 20 before was kind of rough. She can technically now run, I believe it's all that Ludwig's artifact, right? So you could potentially use that to start off with souls, which is okay. And yeah, I think this is going to be setting her up to be receiving a speed EE. With these changes just by themselves, I don't think it's going to be enough. We're going to see the EE is probably going to bring in an additional change, an additional little buff. And I'm hoping that it's going to be a 10 speed EE, right? She seems to be the focus, being the first unit on this list. She seems to be the focus of this balance patch, but hopefully with this, she will become a very versatile unit because you don't have to build crit on her anymore. Some people might still opt to build crit for like Commander Pavel shenanigans, but you're not required to have that 100% crit, so it does increase her flexibility in her build, which I really do like. But yeah, moving on, we have another one of my all-time favorite units to use, especially back in the day, Little Queen Charlotte. Yeah, this is a unit that I didn't think would get buffed here, but I'm really happy she did. She has kind of the same issue as Bystander Hua Young, where she is so gear intensive. Like, the amount of good gear that you have to put on her, my equipment score on Little Queen Charlotte is off the charts, but she still looks like a terrible unit on paper because you just have to invest in every stat ever, right? You need attack, you need crit chance, you need crit damage, but you need some bulk. She also needs to be fast sometimes, depending on how you play. So she needs a little bit of everything, and if you're putting all your eggs into one basket, like damage, you have 0 survivability or 0 speed, right? If you put speed and some damage, you're lacking in bulk, you can get one shot and she's gonna get outsped. So there's a ton of issues with using her, but now we're seeing that every successful attack will always result in a critical hit for her skill 1 and her skill 3. So this is really good because the fact that she gets these guaranteed crits, regardless of whether or not she's sealed. The fact that they put this not on her passive, but onto her actual skills is decent, right? Because seals are kind of bad and annoying, and this is kind of good, right? Just a little caveat to note there. Now, her skill 3 that's awakened, the base damage is apparently going to be increased on the skill 3, right? Instead of, but apparently what they're doing is they're, the damage dealt to dark elemental targets is going to be decreased, but they're going to increase the overall base damage. So increases her versatility against units in general. I'm hoping that the damage against dark units is still going to be the same. And her soul burn, instead of 10 souls to decrease skill cooldowns by 2 turns, which was kind of cool, but she never lived to do a second turn. Now, when you burn 10 souls, she increases her hit chance by 100%. Guys, this guarantees that you will hit the Setsukas. This will guarantee that you can hit ML Bologna, the Arbiter Vildrids, right? The fact that she has Extinction makes her a great RB counter. The fact that she has 100% hit chance makes her a great ML Bologna counter, and those two are dark units, right? So Little Queen Charlotte is, I think, going to see an increase in use, at least against Arbiter Vildrid and Emma Bolognas and Setsukas and all that stuff. Keep in mind, you're probably gonna have to soul burn with her. You could run her on Firecrow's Artifact, right? But you do give up Benimaru's Tachi, which gives up immunity and the attack buff. I don't know if that's worth it as a trade-off. Probably just run somebody else that can give souls. There's so many soul generators now in the game. But Little Queen Charlotte, guys, I think is going to be pretty sick. Really looking forward to her. Another thing is, because of her imprints, always resulting in a crit, they're changing her imprints, which is great. So she's no longer getting the self-imprint for crit, and instead she's going to get a boost to her attack, which is good because it scales with her skill 3 splash damage as well, this additional damage, right, which is really, really nice. Does help deal with things like free runs and stuff like that. I know some people were running Little Queen Charlotte's with enough attack, like 5k plus attack, to deal enough splash damage to things like RNL and things like that too, because they're relatively squishy, and you could finish them off with that impact too. So this is kind of good to see. Makes her a lot easier to build because you don't have to build crit rate at all. You still have to build crit damage, right? But that crit rate can go into speed, it can go into bulk, it can make her just a little bit more resilient. Her passive does decrease the amount of damage that your team takes, which is also pretty good. So this will just increase her survivability by that much more. Super happy to see. Definitely going to be testing her out. Super excited for her. Next up, though, the Dark units also getting a little bit of love here in the form of Dark Corvus, guys. Dark Corvus used to just be immune to stun. You could sleep him, but now he's immune to all debuffs which prevent movement. So this includes stun, sleep, and fear. You guys know how much I hate fear. Anybody who's going to be immune to fear is going to be amazing in my book, honestly. So Dark Corvus already seeing use in RTA, by the way. Not a meme character, not just a Guild War character. Seeing use in RTA, especially in Harsetti teams, especially against slower teams. Super solid unit. And what happens here is that after he gets crit, he has a 100% chance to decrease skill cooldowns by additional 1 turn, which is nice. So now he's just going to be, I think they reworded this. I don't know what like this is here. We're saying 2 turns in case of a critical hit. I think they're just rewording it to be a bit more clear. Right, I think that's just a wording change. Anyway, moving on into Devil's Descent. This is his skill 3. Now, the main thing here is that when he is attacking another unit, he ignores damage share. Guys, damage share was the one thing holding Dark Corvus back, especially if there's an Estelle or something on the other team. Absorbing 40% of the damage that you deal. Like, you can't kill Ruels, you can't kill anything that's like 20 HP or above, right? And so this is going to make things a lot easier. Now, they're also making it so that when his Soul Burn is not used, the damage dealt is going to be increased. They're not increasing its overall damage, because his Soul Burn skill 3 pretty much guarantees kills on everything, especially now that he's going to ignore damage sharing. But his base damage, when you don't Soul Burn the skill 3, is just going to be better, making his overall viability just, you know, slightly more better. It's just going to be improved. But yeah, Dark Corvus already seen play. This will just help make him more consistent, and consistency is key when you're doing PvP. Alright, moving on, guys, we have some Covenant heroes receiving some changes, and the first thing is going to be Jenua. Jenua here is now going to be getting an attack buff before he does his skill 1 attack. Before he used to increase the attack afterwards, which made like no sense, but back in the day it kind of made sense. He was really, really strong, just destroying everybody in his path. And now what happens is instead of a critical hit will inflict additional damage proportional to the caster's attack, right? That's going to be removed, and he's just going to deal additional damage proportional to the caster's attack on all enemies. Which is nice, which is super, super nice. The other thing is he also gets 2 more things. Lifesteal, right? Lifesteal on his bite. And when the enemy is defeated, he inflicts extinction. This is huge. Yeah, this is huge. 2 changes, right? So the first thing you might be like, well, he already used to recover HP. Before he used to recover HP proportional to his attack stat. Now he's going to be absorbing the damage dealt. I'm going to assume that this is going to be a better change. We don't know the numbers and stats of it yet. We're going to need to wait for data mines on that. But scaling off of damage dealt is better for Jenua because he deals an absurd amount of damage. He should be able to heal up to full health pretty much every time with this, which should be good. And the second part here, the extinction is just amazing because we have so many revive units in the game, guys. Ruel, May Chloe, Spirit Eye, Celine, right? Just all over the place. Nurse Johan and Salome copying people, copying Ruel, copying Nurse to revive more things that revive more things. Arbiter Vildred just reviving by himself. Notos, Holy Sacrifice. All these things are just super annoying. Jenua gonna make things a little bit easier. Not sure if he's gonna see an increase in use in PvP. If he does, Empyrean Ilanov definitely gonna be making a bit of a comeback here. Hey, makes sense. Her skin just came out, right, for the RTA season. So that's gonna be pretty cool to see. But yeah, we'll see how he plays out. I think he's gonna be pretty useful in like guild wars and things because he's a really strong solo DPS at this point. Him being able to heal up back to full health, and let's say you're running Wind Rider on him, going into stealth with full health makes him just incredibly hard to deal with, especially with the increased attack now before he attacks. So he's going to be dealing significantly more damage, more consistent. And again, consistency is key. Speaking of which, we have our boy Aki, who I've used quite a few times this season, actually. What they're doing is, for some reason, they're decreasing his base damage dealt, like his actual physical attacking damage, I believe that is, but they're increasing his detonation damage, which is super good on his skill 1 and his skill 3. Now, the main thing here is that his skill 3 is now on a 3-turn cooldown. If you've ever used Aki, and you ran him with a giant barrier and stuff with his own artifact, right, low HP on a torrent set and all that good stuff, what you'll know is that when you start with the Soulburn skill 3, then you can Soulburn the skill 1, and you can Soulburn a skill 1. That normally you get 3 free Soulburns if you build them optimally. But then you have to kind of end off with just another skill 1 in that situation. Now, with this skill 3 on a 3-turn cooldown, you should be able to Soulburn skill 3 into a Soulburn skill 1, Soulburn skill 1 into another skill 3. Now that last one you won't get the Soulburn on, I don't believe, unless you have like the souls for it, but yeah, oh wait, no, yeah. So that's what's gonna be it. He's gonna be pretty cool to see in action. I think he can pretty much solo teams now, depending on how much the detonation damage is increased by. I can't wait because I love using Aki. You guys love seeing Aki in action. Can't wait for this. He's still very situational, but in those situations where you outspeed your opponent and you can deal that damage, you best believe that you're going to be finishing off pretty much everybody there. So that is going to be really, really cool to see him turn cycle. Okay, next up we have the third Lidica. The Fire Lidica's been getting a lot of love by Smilegate lately, and now we see Faithless Lidica and Blooming Lidica this time. Now, Blooming Lidica's gonna get a very small change. Her Thorn Vine cooldown is just gonna go from 3 turns to 2 turns, so every 2 turns she can do her little extra attack skill 2 animation, and they're increasing the damage dealt on her skill 3. We don't know what that scaling is gonna look like. She did need a little bit of help with this, but again, we have to see the damage numbers. If we see the damage numbers, if it's good, she becomes another really solid bridge unit. And I'm kind of excited to try to use her some more. I do play relatively slow. I remember back in the day I got slammed for using her quote-unquote incorrectly. But yeah, I think there is room for Blooming Lidica to be used nowadays, right now. Especially with, you know, tank down and slower teams are kind of falling to the wayside. Aggressive teams are starting to take hold, right? So we see buffs like Faithless Lidica, Blooming Lidica, and all these other units that are really fast and really aggressive and set up for your team. Gonna be kind of scary to see, especially because, again, Blooming Lidica also sets up skill nullifiers, so it's gonna be kind of hard to burst through with chip damage. Alright, next up is going to be Schniel, guys. So Schniel is a unit that people kind of hyped up to be like a amazing Perfumer Bibulus counter. Except he wasn't, except he isn't. He's just not good. And so what they've done is they've kind of reworked him quite a bit, actually. So his skill 1 now is, instead of dispelling 1 debuff from an ally, now it just increases combat readiness of himself and an ally with the highest attack except for himself by 15%. So combat readiness gains, really nice. This kind of reminds me of like Mediator Cowrick's skill 1. So, you know, for example, for reference, it's a pretty good skill to turn cycle, right? To make sure you keep taking turns. They also removed his soul burn. We'll get to that later once we get to his other skills. And yeah, he does gain the combat readiness imprints here. So it is kind of, or sorry, awakenings here. So you do want the skill enhancements on this to get up to the 15%. Without it, it just push up 10%. 5%, quite noticeable. Sometimes it does help you cut. So highly recommend you definitely get that if you're going to be building him. But the other thing is you can test out these units and all their changes, right? Before you commit to using your resources by using the Grace of Growth in-game. Okay, the other thing is his passive ability now, instead of increasing max health by 10%, which is a really nice ability on like knights and tanks and stuff, but for a Soul Weaver like this, it's not really the greatest thing ever. Now at the start of the turn, he dispels 1 debuff each from 2 allies. So it has to be the start of his turn. It is kind of like a soft Nurse Yoha ability. Nurse Yoha is just whenever your allies take a turn, they cleanse a debuff off themselves. This is just Schniel. Whenever he takes a turn, dispels 1 debuff from 2 allies, which is again not bad considering he does turn cycle himself with the skill 1, so there is some synergy there. The other thing is, when he does his cleanse, when your team is inflicted by poison or venom, Perfume Bibulus, he will cleanse and dispel all debuffs from everybody still. He'll grant immunity and Indomitable for a turn. The Indomitable is going to be really important when we get to his last skill. You may walk yourself out. You may show yourself the door. I love that. The skill name there. Now, you may walk yourself out now after the awakening. Instead of dealing 4,000 fixed damage, they increased it to 5,000 fixed damage, regardless of whether the attack hits. So this is going to be really nice. We're starting to see a lot of characters like ML Ludwig, ML Kayron, now Schniel deal this fixed damage regardless of hittings, just so you can counter evasion units a bit better. This is going to be kind of nice to see, especially because Perfume Bibulus tends to get paired up with things like Setsuka and Bologna when you're tanking down. So again, we're seeing Smilegate kind of punish this kind of tank down evasion type of playstyle. And the fixed damage is pretty good. The ramp up here is pretty good, right? The other thing is you actually gain a barrier that's proportional to his max health to all allies for 2 turns. And when you're granted Indomitable, you greatly increase the damage dealt. So you no longer have to increase the the damage every time you use a skill, this is as long as you have Indomitable. So you can use Schniel with Empyrean Ilanov to just give him Indomitable and then just skill 3. I don't know how much greatly increases additional damage is going to be, but judging by the buff that we saw here, 4,000 to 5,000, I'm hoping that this thing might see from like 12,000 to 15,000 damage for the additional damage like ramp up. I don't know, or if it's just going to be like, hey, we're generous with the 5,000. He's already pretty consistent with Indomitable. Maybe it's just going to bump it up to like a 10,000 or something. We have to see what the data mines. The cool thing is the cooldown is going to be lower. You do acquire less souls, but that doesn't matter. And a 10 soul soul burn increases the barrier strength that you get from the skill 3. So yeah, barriers are really nice, especially because if you're using Schniel against things like Bibulus, like you kind of want to cleanse, you kind of want to make sure you're not getting injury dealt. If you're fighting things like Bellona, right, because you're doing a AoE attack here, and Bellona's going to probably slap you with her S2, and she does injury. This will protect you from some injury damage as well. So it's going to be kind of nice, good synergy with the rest of his kit. I think with these changes, he might actually become usable. Like, funnily enough, I think he might actually be usable here. Whether he's used as a nuke, like an anti-Bibulus, like first pick, like aggro team nuke, because he is now more proactive. He's not very reactive as he was before. He is still, but the damage is proactive, which is gonna make him kind of scary. I'm not looking forward to fighting him, honestly, because Perfumer and Bibulus is sort of my crutch this season to try to survive the onslaught of people climbing in RTA. But yeah, Schniel I think is going to be really, really good in the upcoming season if Bibulus is still going to remain top tier meta. Now, next up we have some 4-star picks, guys. Inferno Khawazu, kind of a weird one to see. He's no longer going to have the soul burn on the skill 1, that's going to come later. And now, instead of increasing the combat readiness by 25%, it's buffed to 30%. It's kind of taking his EE and incorporating it into his kit, right? Also, when he's attacked, damage suffered in one attack does not exceed 51% of max health, which means he gets that like Tempest Cern, Spirit Eye Celine sort of passive, and he can't be taken down as easily. Right? This means that you don't have to build him super bulky. You can build him super squishy, and you can just build him full on attack to make sure that you go and ignore effect resistance, right? And attack and detonate those burns on your opponent. So this could be really, really cool to see, especially because he is sort of an anti-AoE unit, so if your opponent opens with an AoE or attacks you with an AoE, you can use him, jump up 30% combat readiness, and like nuke somebody on your opponent's side of the field. Now, the Soul Burn is a skill cooldown decrease by 2 turns. You no longer get the extra turn here, but 10 souls more reasonable for a soul burn for him, especially because he's probably only going to be taking out like 1 unit. I don't see him really living that long. People are probably going to focus him down. If he pops off, he'll get to nuke 1 unit, might not survive to the next turn. If he does, then you'll probably be able to just skill 3 again, right? But we'll see. We'll see how he does. Probably going to be a really niche counter pick into AoE openers. Look, wow, they're buffing Faithless Lidica and they're putting a counter into her right here. How sad. But yeah, Inferno Khawazu, pretty cool to see. Really accessible unit too, so definitely kind of like a budget Aki in a way, right? So you can build him up and have fun with that. They are replacing his EE, by the way, the 5% that I said they incorporated into his skill. Now whenever he procs his passive ability, you gain 10 souls, so kind of good. It's a free soul burn, so why not use it, yeah? Pretty decent stuff. Okay, next up we do see the artifact changes. Seductive Flower going to be changed to be more in line with the Perfumer Bibulus, or not the Perfumer Bibulus, the Blooming Lidica change, right, that we saw. They are increasing the combat readiness decrease from 10 to 20% to 12 to 24%. Minor change. Decent, we'll take it, but now it can be activated every 2 turns instead of every 3 turns. This is just, again, to line up with Lidica's passive ability, but you could also technically be running this on other units as well, so keep that in mind. Seductive Flower does increase effectiveness just by a flat amount, and the extra attack, right, being able to decrease combat readiness. I guess you wouldn't run this on like Ludwig, right, the new Ludwig or anything. It could synergize, but yeah, his own artifact is better. But there are other units that might be able to use this in the future, so Keep that in mind, right, if you have one. Elegiac Candle as well, going to be buffed from a 25 to 50% chance to decrease defense to 30 to 60% chance. Now, the maxed out 60% chance is really good. If you have a plus 15 one, it's going to be a little underwhelming. It's like a 45% chance, right? If you have a plus 15 here. So 50-50 shot at defense breaking is not horrible. This could be used on Faithless Lidica, by the way. You can use it to skill 2 and like potentially defense break a bunch of units. I would say you're probably still running Renewed Will on Faithless Lidica to push up your team with a skill 2, especially if she gets an EE. We have to see what her EE is going to be. Maybe it does build in that Renewed Will into her kit or something like that, which would be kind of nice. But yeah, that is going to be it for this balance adjustment preview, guys. A bunch of changes that I'm kind of excited for, not gonna lie. Stove is very upset about these changes. They think it's a filler patch. They don't think it's enough. What do you guys think, though? Do you think this is going to be impactful in the meta? Do you think these curated picks like Schniel for the Perfume Ambivalus is going to be good? Do you think Faithless Lidica is going to get an EE? What do you want her EE to be? And is Little Queen Charlotte going to actually make a splash with all the damage that she can now do and the consistency she's going to pack with her adjustments? Let me know in the comments section down below. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.